and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Hard Lens Media. And for those of you who are watching us live on our YouTube channel, Rumble account, Odyssey, Rockfin, and Kick, this is going to be a very special episode because not only are we going to have a super long show today on our main channel, but we're also going to have a secondary live stream show later tonight at 9 p.m. Central. But first and foremost, since our main channel has been restored, and I want to once again bring on a guest who's been talking a lot about the crisis that's impacting Chicago, I am proud to bring back on board to the show. He's an activist, he's an entrepreneur, he ran for the Chicago mayor's office, and he's been an outspoken critic of what is happening here in the city of Chicago. Please give it up for a good friend of the show, Jamal Grain. Jamal, thank you so much for returning back onto Hard Lens Media. Obviously, now we're meeting under better times, but Chicago is still in a storm.
Better times.
Well, I mean, nonetheless, it's good to have you back on. But Chicago, though, I'm constantly getting messages from my colleagues in independent media, what's happening in Chicago, and obviously there's a huge follow up to what we talked about last time you were here with us. And I just want to bring up this article, and I'm pretty sure you saw this from yesterday as well, from the Chicago Tribune, and that is none other than Mayor Johnson calls on the state to build migrant shelters outside of Chicago. There's an ongoing back and forth between him and Governor J.B. Pritzker, and all the while, Chicago is set to have the Democratic convention coming here, I believe, in August. So already we see a powder keg that's ready to blow up. And on social media, you've been calling out the mayor for his, lack of a clear plan. So for my viewing audience, and we got a huge diverse audience from all over this country, can you explain to our viewers and subscribers overall what has been your contact with, people on the ground who've been trying to call out the mayor, address him for his, lack of leadership, as well as the fact that you have these migrants who are innocent people, by the way, being put into a situation that is understandably out of their control and putting their health and their lives at risk. So I want to give the floor to you.
Yeah, well, this whole situation is unfortunate. And I think that the people that have been on the ground speaking out against it have a more pro-migrant approach than the mayor. The mayor pro-migrant approach, he believes, is to give these contractors hundreds of millions of dollars, all while not giving migrants a good quality of life. We have migrants breaking into buildings for shelter, yet we spent $1 billion over the last year. We have migrants, literally eating out of garbage cans, but yet we spent $1 billion over the last year. Now, $1 billion is a lot of money. And that's why I understand what JB is, because JB said, look, I done gave y'all $700-800 million. And somehow you have not managed this response in a way, that is humane for the migrants, and that also doesn't dispose of community voices. This Brandon Johnson was not prepared for a crisis like this, and which is why I didn't support him. And I knew that I've been knowing Brandon for many years, and I knew that he did not have the fortitude to lead the third largest city in America. And when you look at what has happened thus far, how he barely will speak to the media, and when he does speak to the media, he won't answer any questions. How this is the most non-transparent administration we've had in a long time, when they campaign on transparency. We don't even know what a majority of the migrant shelters are because they wouldn't even tell us. And so it's just highly unfortunate to see what's going on in our city. It has had a very bad effect on the South and West Side communities, the Black and Brown communities, and people don't feel heard. People don't feel like there are resources coming to them. People feel like they are being left out of the conversation, and it's going to be a rough next couple of years.
Now, I have this article here from ABC News, which is saying, despite the back and forth, Mayor Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, has said that he and Governor Pritzker are not at odds with each other, even though Governor Pritzker did state that he's very concerned about the lack of new shelters for migrants in Chicago. The state allocated an extra $180 million to help, but the governor said he's still waiting for the city for a plan. And there's a quote here from the governor as well. The city has not told the state where they would like us to put our resources to build new shelters or help them build new shelters at all. So we can't help it if we can't identify those locations. As again, Mayor Brandon Johnson is also quoted saying, "I know folks may question my style, but don't question my leadership." And then going back to this article here from the Chicago Tribune, speaking to reporters after presiding over the city council meeting, the mayor did not directly answer questions about the fate of the next round of migrants, whose 60-day deadline to vacate city-run shelters arrives February 1st, with the harsh winter expected to remain. So I talked about this on yesterday's show, but there is a deadline for the migrants to then be kicked out of the shelters. And then there's also videos on social media. You've posted it, and I've seen it being posted on other Chicago-adjacent social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have migrants breaking into, vacant homes. And, for a long time, many residents who've been living in the South and West Side neighborhood of Chicago, families have been living here for generations, want to see their communities revitalized and restored. And now there's this deadline. There's the potential of the fate of these migrants. Overall, can you explain to our viewers this deadline, and then what happens to these migrants? Are they still here? Is there a deadline? Are people going to be kicked out of the city?
Yeah.
Because all in all, I'm seeing vacant homes being taken over. I'm seeing the fact that the city's not investing into communities and allowing this to happen. Right. And then there's a deadline. Like there's a huge lack of transparency by the mayor. Yeah. When you reach out to the mayor's office, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there is no plan here. And I think a lot of the migrants who will get put out will go to the streets. I went to church this past Sunday, and there was a lot of migrants that came in who couldn't speak English, who were, looking for resources there. And so, there is no plan here. And the reality is that there are tens of thousands of more migrants on the way, especially with the convention coming up. So we can't take care of the 30,000, 33,000 migrants that we have. Yet there are thousands on the way, and there isn't a plan. And the only plan that the city has moved forward is that we're going to kick them out the shelter within 60 days. Somehow, without, look at the work waivers that we're given, and 1% has them. So there is no way here, or no pathway for them to, even be able to live in Chicago and have a decent life, which is why from the beginning, it wasn't a good idea. We spent $1 billion and we didn't have the space. Yet we thought it was a good idea to accept 33,000 migrants with no plan, with tens of thousands of migrants on the way. It's not anti-migrant to say we should have put a cap and stopped taking migrants. Even if Governor Abbott would have cried foul, step up and say, listen, we can't handle this right now. And Joe Biden needs to correct his issue. But instead, these cities want to try to help Joe Biden in hopes that Joe Biden will move for billions of dollars down to them so that they can have some extra money for their next year's budget. And that, I don't believe, is going to happen. So the fact that they are expending billions of dollars and they're hoping to get reimbursed, it is financial mismanagement is what's happening. And that's basically telling the banks to just give out money and hope that it will come back with no type of plan or guarantees. And I think that doesn't make sense.
The last time I had you on my show, I talked about also how communities have been reacting to this and how people have been very vocal at City Hall. And it led to eventually this mayor. And, I don't want to put praise to Lightfoot or Rahm Emanuel, but even I couldn't see those two doing this. But Mayor Brandon Johnson actually kicking out citizens from participating on the main floor with the aldermen and the mayor. And people have every right to be vocal, be they in support of said candidates and politicians or to be critical of them. since that has happened, what has been your interaction with groups and organizations? Because I know you've done a lot of community action, you've done a lot of protests, you've done a lot of entrepreneur programs, especially in the impoverished areas in the city of Chicago. What are some of these groups saying to you in regards to their interaction with city council? Because I could never see Lightfoot doing this, and I can't even see Rahm Emanuel even doing something
No,
that absurd at what this mayor has
not at
done.
all.
What has been your interaction with
Well, I
members of the
think
community?
this goes back to what I said. They campaign on transparency. They campaign on collaborating with the communities and the people in the communities, and we see that all was a lie. Kicking people out of the chamber, telling people that they got to go upstairs, and we don't want them in the public room with the mayor. I mean, is utterly disgusting. That's not democracy. That's not how City Hall has ever been ran. City Hall right now, you got police officers guarding the elevators, and they won't even let you get on City Hall elevators without telling them where you're going and making sure that you're supposed to go there. City
That's
Hall
never
is a
happened
building
before.
for the
My
people.
God.
That has never happened. Even under Rahm Emanuel, I was doing protests right in front of the mayor's office. So
Mm-hmm.
they never stopped. They just told him, "Hey, you got a group coming upstairs. They've been to protest in front of the mayor's office," and never had a situation where police was guarding every elevator and won't let you move around City Hall without a pass. I mean, this is utterly it's insane
Mm-hmm.
that they campaigned the way that they did, and then we look at how they're operating now. But
Wow.
this was all expected for me. I knew this. I knew what was going to happen. I said what was going to happen in debates, in the runoff, and it is now coming to fruition.
Now, speaking of which, Chicago, Lightfoot, and as you corrected me on a previous show, Lightfoot did secure the fact that the DNC convention is going to be happening here in Chicago this year,
Mhm.
August. And Hardlands Media, we're going to be there to cover it and
Yep.
hopefully to interview some people, get some live streams happening there to at least cover what's happening there in the DNC convention. My concern is I see this becoming a powder keg because there has been this growing action of people leaving the Democratic Party, from not only black voters, but Latino voters, Muslim voters, Arab voters, young people, everyone, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, everyone's starting to get disgusted with the Democratic Party and their overall hypocrisy. What are
Yeah.
some of your concerns of the DNC convention happening here in Chicago?
Well,
Because now I'm seeing such a massive pushback, because in 2020 there was this huge rush to bully everyone on social media to vote for Biden because Trump was the overall, or deemed by them, the end all be all threat
yeah.
to democracy, when in fact we've
Right.
got politicians who've been in office for so many years. They make Trump
Yeah.
look like an amateur at the job of being a tyrant. So
Right.
what are some of your thoughts on the DNC convention happening here in Chicago? Do you think anything could be
Yeah.
achieved? Is it going to bring enthusiasm? I want to get your thoughts on the DNC convention coming here in
Well,
Chicago.
if I was the governor or the mayor right now, I'll be telling
Mhm.
Joe Biden that the DNC is off.
Mhm.
And one, I would be saying that because I would be telling them that if they don't back us with some federal dollars, I agree with Cam Buckner, Assistant Majority Leader Cam Buckner, to where he um, talks about the fact that if we have the power, why are we just allowing the Democratic Party to come in and just do what they want to do at the convention while we're handling federal problems that they are not helping with? That's one.
Mhm.
Number two, with the DNC coming to the city of Chicago, there are going to be mass protests. There is going to be shutdowns. There's going to be, expect Palestinians to really be active if there is no resolve by that time in the war.
Mhm.
I think that there's a lot of different things that can happen, especially with being in the city of Chicago. And right now, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. So, at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is losing voters.
Mhm.
They've lost the Palestinian demographic. They have lost a big chunk of black people because of the migrant crisis and because they felt like they haven't gotten anything. They've lost young people because Joe Biden didn't use the education committee from the start to really just use the swipe of a pen and get rid of student loan debt. And they've lost those workers who begged Joe Biden for a minimum wage. They were out there protesting each and every day, fighting for 15, and Joe Biden has never fought for 15. This is the reality of the situation, is that there are many issues that people voted for Joe Biden for. They didn't vote for Joe Biden because they liked Joe Biden. No one voted for Joe Biden because they thought he would have been a stellar president. That's not what happened. They voted for Joe Biden because, one, he was either they feared Trump, or two, Joe Biden promised progressive issues so that he can bridge the divide within the party. And I think that now people don't fear Trump anymore. That's a problem. And then two, people didn't get their issues met. So the Democratic Party and Joe Biden was going to have a real problem, which is why he shouldn't be the nominee in the first place.
I've had my criticism, as well as how the DNC convention is even going to be presenting itself. And, I hope I'm wrong about this, but I do see people's emotions getting the better of them. The number one issue is going to be the economy, and it's impacting every single community, every single demographic. I don't care what anybody says. The number one issue is, if you can't put food in your stomach, you can't put food on the table, if you can't buy medicine, if you can't make sure the roof over your head is still stable, then everyone's going to start getting angry, and everyone's going to going after each other. And the thing is, what I tell people is, don't go after your neighbor. Don't fight somebody who's on the street trying to survive just like you. It's the man in the suit and tie. It's the politicians in Washington, D.C. And I've covered on this show different segments of Arab voters leaving the Democratic Party, Latino voters leaving the Democratic Party. And with your permission, this is a video on your Twitter account where you talk about how Black people need to build independent wealth, unify and create power structures, because for too long, the Democratic Party has been putting the jackboot not only on Black people, but on everyone across the board. And yet I see on the media, on MSNBC or CNN, oh, how can we get Black people back? How can we get Black voters back? So if it's okay with you, can I play this video sure thing. Great. And now it's on another podcast. What was this podcast that you were on? I think it's
the Treehouse Show.
The Treehouse Show. Well, it's fantastic. Let me go ahead and play this video for everyone, and I'll play it its full entirety, and I just want to get your comments on it.
There's a reason why the Democratic Party could give a damn about Black people, but we keep giving them their votes. There's a reason why they're stumping on us, even right now with the migrant crisis. We can go on and on and on about how they are showing you how they feel about you, because we haven't built enough independent wealth in America that we don't have the power to fight them. So they know you're dependent on us. You need us to build you some housing units. You need us to build you a grocery store. You need us for them food stamps. You need us. So while you needed us, we can do what we want to do with our money. We can spend billions of dollars on new arrivals, on Israel. We can give billions of dollars to Israel. We can give billions of dollars to Ukraine. We care nothing about you thriving in America because you're dependent on us, so we still got you on a string. Until we break away and say, no, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna get up and we're gonna start collaborating. Okay, who got the credit? All right, you got credit? Okay, you got $10,000 down? Okay, bet we can get this bill. All right, what you got? Oh, you got this great business idea? All right, I'm investing that idea. I'm the great marketer. I'm gonna market that idea. You got a podcast. I'm gonna put it on the podcast. We have to start banding together and really building this on a mass scale. Or what are we leaving our children?
Exactly. So I just want to get your thoughts on it, because, this is something I'm seeing all over social media. We have money for wars. We have this money for this war in Ukraine. We have this money for this horrific genocide that's taking place in Gaza. We have this money for the war in Yemen. We have money to bail out banks and corporations. But yet, where's the bailout for the American people, especially during 2020 when we had lockdowns in which people were told to stay indoors, don't go to work, but you still have to pay the bills, which is why so many people are now in credit card debt. I mean, they say the economy is recovering. Well, the top 1%ers have recovered. The corporations recovered. Wall Street recovered. What, people recovered? What, because wages increased? No, but just because wages increased, prices are still up. Go ahead, take the floor.
And Brandon Johnson spent $95 million of them COVID dollars on the migrant crisis. Well, that $95 million could have went to a program for those folks who still haven't made it through. And I think what I was basically saying is Black people in America, we are too dependent on the government. And what happens is that because we are dependent on the government, they can constantly, they can constantly not care about our issues. When the Asians stepped up and said, we were getting hate, they moved forward an anti-Asian hate bill quickly. All right. Whenever there's an issue for any group of people, they get their issues met. But yet, when the Democratic Party is in place, we already know how the Republicans treat Black people as well. But when the Democratic Party gets in place, they promise us things and they never, ever, ever fulfill them. George Floyd, I led the first week of protests with George Floyd family. And in Minnesota, they burned everything down. People, 50 states, all protested, rioted. I mean, people were angry with George during the George Floyd. You know this. This was one of the biggest
we talked about it.
uprisings in a long time. Tell me what bill and what happened in response to 50 states of people standing up. It wasn't the George Floyd Act. It wasn't any policy, any economic policy, any social justice policy. The best that they can do is give us a Juneteenth holiday and come into the Capitol with kente cloth.
God, I can't believe they did that.
They care about Black folks kneeling with kente cloths in the Capitol. At a certain point, we got to get disgusted here and say, God damn, enough is enough. Folks are starving. Folks are being redlined by these banks. I had to fight Chase Bank because Chase Bank wouldn't even give us home loans 1.9% of the time in Chicago. They are allowing banks to redline us. So now we don't have the government help. Our abandoned buildings all throughout our communities. We don't have a fresh produce so we can eat. So we have a lower time span than any other culture because we drinking from lead water, because we don't have fresh produce that we can access. We don't have the wages so we can buy it. We don't have housing in our communities. We are living in environmentally hazardous communities. So when you have all of these problems happening, and you don't have the government, you don't have the banks, you don't have no financial powers that is able to uplift and support these communities. The only thing that we could do is try to band together with what we have and collaborate so that we can start to build enough wealth on our own and we can pour it into politics and start taking them out. That's the only way. When you are so far at the bottom and you have no help, you must band together economically, physically. I don't care what is the case in every time in this world. People had to band together to fight. And that is what these communities that have been starving the most must do.
Precisely. So one of the things I am interested to see, though, is the overall interaction the Democratic Party is going to have, especially when it comes time for the general election, because now there's such a massive push or either that there's a growing movement for voters to look at other alternatives like independents. I know there's RFK Jr. running, Dr. Cornel West, both of whom are running as independents. And you have Dr. Jill Stein in the Green Party. You have the Libertarian Party, of course. And then, of course, you have people who are saying, well, I might just vote for Trump, or either that people who are choosing to opt out. But the thing is, I think at this point in time, we are in an interesting point, not the most important election cycle, but maybe the most interesting election cycle, to where now we're having these open discussions of breaking away. Do you see a future for the Democratic Party? Because the Democratic Party here in Chicago for a long time has had this control over the city. And I think what a lot of my viewing audience doesn't really understand is it's not that just any other party can't run, but you have to have party loyalty to the machine. Is the machine to break here in Chicago? Because the old guard that used to be here is gone. And I encourage my viewers to read the book American Pharaoh, because that's how Old Man Daly turned the city of Chicago from being a council city into the office of the mayor, where the throne controls everything. And that's the beginning of the Democratic machine. And again, folks, Fox News, if you're watching this, Chicago's not a communist utopia. It's a corporatist utopia controlled by a single party. Doesn't believe in anything. Marxism, Leninism, social, doesn't believe in that. I'm waiting for the day to be invited on Fox News so I could correct them on it. But I mean, if it brings in the views, fine.
Sure.
But there's a bigger problem here in Chicago. But do you see the machine starting to crack? Because I have been wondering and observing, especially recently, just how there's such a pushback away from the typical machine politics, and it's struggling now to keep that engine running. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, the reason we have helped to break down the machine over the years, whether it's the folks in the street, whether it is a lot of the folks that have been arrested in politics, that machine has been broken down for years. Ed Burke just being convicted. Mike Madigan probably being convicted. There are a lot of people who had a play in the machine that is no longer around, and they are not able to win elections as they used to be. Cook County was Tony Preckwinkle, Cook County board president and head of the Cook County Democratic Party, got slaughtered by Lori Lightfoot and barely got 27% of the vote. So when you know that the party structures over the years are being broken down, we must be prepared and continuously trying to build a party that really will represent us in this city and in this state. And I think nationally, the Democratic Party is hurting for sure, because on the biggest issues in America, they're losing on. One of the big issues now is the immigration policies. And a lot of people all throughout America, and especially in the Black communities, now have that on top of their list because of what's been happening with the migrant crisis. So the Republicans won on that issue, right? You have several issues where people look at the Democratic Party and say, why am I supporting you? And so I think that they're going to have a hard time if they don't start replacing the leadership and they don't start supporting young people. We cannot keep letting the old guard win seats. I mean, look here. We got Danny Davis and all these congressmen who want to stay in place for 50 years until, what was her name? Dianne
Feinstein, 91 years old, died in office.
91 years old. And didn't come to work for a long time because she couldn't. She was sick. Yeah. And they all said, listen, come on, y'all not going to tell her to just resign? I mean, let's put somebody in this seat to help. And they said, no, we got to step back and allow time to take its course. That is utterly disgusting that the Democratic Party says that if you are elected, you get to die in your seat. And so if we don't start to change the leadership and change that style of politics, the Democratic Party is going to lose us. If Democratic Party don't get bold enough like the Republicans, it makes no sense that when you got a supermajority, you don't use it. It makes no sense that when you got a supermajority, you didn't protect Roe versus Wade. So we got to understand that a lot of these things that have happened to us is because of the non-boldness and the inability for the Democratic Party to make things happen for their voters. And we always want to play party politics. Bipartisan this, Biden do it now. Bipartisan this, bipartisan that. But when the Republicans take control, they go out there and Trump signed so many executive orders when he first got in that seat. And they will do whatever they can. Trump will sign an order totally against the Constitution and say, let the Supreme Court fight me on it. Because they are going to be bold on the right for their people to make it seem like they're doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why Trump is now the nominee again. But here on the Democratic Party side, they don't look at Joe Biden as being bold. They don't look at Joe Biden as going out there to fight for the issues. Joe Biden ain't go out there and move for a $15 minimum wage and get shut down. Joe Biden didn't try to use a swipe of a pen to get rid of student loan debt. He ain't did nothing bold enough for people to say Joe Biden is being bold for me. We have to, in the Democratic Party, elect bold leaders. It's the only way the Democratic Party will be able to pull people back in.
I don't see the party able to pull anyone in, and I see people in the Rumble chat. And to my Rumble audience, I am going to be working on trying to show your comments on the screen here too. But I got somebody who says first time for the fourth time says that Chicago is going to be lit come August of 2024. I hope it's just everything's calm in Chicago and we don't have the infamous 1968 sequel. But knowing how people are enraged, who knows? And again, folks, the DNC convention is coming here in Chicago, and we here at Hard Lens Media will be covering it. I don't know if you will be there as well, Jamal, but we will be there. Another person in my Rumble chat is saying, "Oh, you ain't going."
I want nothing to do with none of them shields of the Democratic Party.
I guess I'll be there, so I'll give you an update how things turn out, and we can have a discussion about that. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Unless they throw on Joe Biden off of the ticket, I want nothing to do with the convention.
And let's see. Somebody else says first time for the fourth time. I think Bobby Rush died in office as well. And then also Rebel Puss says, no, the Democratic Party is against you. Wake the F up. Yeah. So again, shout out to my Rumble audience. And also Soul Construct says to you, Jamal Green ain't playing around. Let's go. So I think for our viewers, I remember from 2016 and onwards, if you were to challenge or be critical of the Democratic Party, you were given this stigma of being a secret Trump supporter or being, I don't know, bigoted or self-hating your own group, or either that hating another group or being a misogynist. And now we're seeing such boldness take place, especially in this year of 2024, where I think finally it's cathartic to let out our frustrations, because we saw what happened with the 2016 primary and 2020 primary. We saw what happened to the great progressive movement and how it fractured and fell apart, and how the heavyweights of the progressive movement told everyone, well, let's just fall in line with the Democratic Party, which for me was an insult, because the primaries of 2016 and 2020 were rigged, and they helped out the establishment candidates from Hillary Clinton and then to Joe Biden. And now we see Joe Biden, who's 81 years old, and he doesn't even know where he's at. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead. Take it away.
I mean, well, I was a national surrogate both of those times for Bernie Sanders. So I was actually very involved in watching the Democratic Party and what they were doing by being next to Bernie and traveling around the country. And I got a lot to say. That's another show. Bernie has pissed me off since then. But anyway, we can't keep falling in line, and that's just not the new age of voters. When the Democratic Party loses their older voters, they're going to have a real problem. In the next few election cycles, those folks who are 65 and up, a lot of those people are going to be gone. And I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying this is the reality of life. So what's going to happen?
I also want to make a correction here. Bobby Rush is not dead. Thank you for the correction, audience.
I was trying to make that connection.
Retired. Retired. Yeah, he's still alive and well. 77. Sorry for that. I just read a funny comment in my Rumble chat. So there you go. Go ahead. No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
So the Democratic Party are going to lose their older voters. What are they going to do when that happens? What are they going to do in the next few election cycles when the oldest of the voters are dead? What are they going to do? Because now you have a new generation of of voters who are not Democratic, and they don't believe in the party politics. So how are you going to convince the new voters, the voters who are now, coming into the fold, who care about what's going on in their life, who never really voted? You got to understand, you got a large group of people who don't believe in the political system. And they all from Gen Z to millennials to Gen X, all of those groups, majority of them don't vote. And so now when they become the main voters, because your baby boomers are gone, how are you going to convince these new voters to be on your side? when they are not on your side right now? That's going to be the biggest problem that the Democratic Party has, is that young people like me and young people, I can walk down any street or go to anybody around my age, and none of them believe in the Democratic Party, and none of them will. I went to, at the end of the election, kit, I went to the Democratic Party's meeting when they were going to their workers to put them at the polling sites, right? Democratic Party, when it gets close to voting, they start getting people in the room and giving them, saying, hey, we're going to give y'all $125 to work the polls and stuff like that, right? So I went into Tony Preckwinkle's Democratic Party meeting. There was nobody in the room under 75, kid. I swear.
No.
It was people on breathing machines. It was people in wheelchair. I swear to God. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Nobody in there was under 75. And I said, these are the Democratic Party workers that y'all are working the polls with? Oh, what's going to happen in the next couple election cycles? How are you going to convince young people to come and work for the Democratic Party? They literally have no young people in the Democratic Party with boots on the ground organizing for the Democratic Party. So they're going to have a real rough time. Kid, I was up in there like, this is crazy. I sat in that meeting and my team looked around and said, we can believe this. Everybody in here is 75 over. I said, this is crazy. And so if they believe that, that's their key right now. See, what happens is the leadership is old too. So what happens is they still believe that they can do what they want to do because they still have their older voters. And they know that once their older voters are gone, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be gone. So they don't really care about the future of the Democratic Party, because as soon as my older voters are gone, I'm going to be gone too, because I'm around their age. And we can't think like that. When do we ever build up the next generation to make sure that in the future, there's a party that will represent us, our interests?
Precisely.
So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
It is rather unfortunate. And look, while we do have a lot more to really address here in the city of Chicago, I would like to hopefully have you back on again, at least sometime before the DNC convention arrives here, because I'm pretty sure as we leave these cold Chicago months behind, it's going to start warming up and people are going to be active in the streets again. People are going to be very vocal again. And once again, our mayor is going to have to confront the people. So for my viewers and subscribers, where can they follow you?
He don't even go and talk to the media. What you talking about confronting the people? He only do one press conference every month or two. Listen,
that is true. Even Lightfoot and Emmanuel had a better and here I am defending Lightfoot and Emmanuel.
Oh that's my God, that's
how low of a bar Brandon Johnson is.
I was both of their biggest critics. I mean, and goddamn, I would have gave him another term. Listen, this is terrible. Okay, this is the most incompetent administration I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you hear more from the senior advisor and his scandals than you do the own mayor. I mean, you couldn't name a senior advisor. Many people don't even know that of who was the senior advisor to either of the last few mayors. And the senior advisor have scandal after scandal, and he tweeting statements and giving statements to the press. I mean, that's utterly insane. That
precisely
who's governing this city is the president of the teachers union and a senior advisor who don't know how to manage anything. I mean, listen. I'm just, and this is not to hate on anybody. I want to see this. I said clearly, I know I didn't support Brandon Johnson because I know Brandon. This exact table that I'm at right now, Brandon Johnson sat right here at this table with me some months ago. And I asked him every question you can think of. And he didn't even know why he was in this position. And he couldn't answer not one question. And I as much as I love, first of all, people know how much I love my Black people. I do. But goddamn, this is the 3rd largest city in the country. And if you don't know how to manage, you don't know how to lead, and if you don't have a vision, you cannot be in a position of power like this. And I don't care if you're Black, brown, white, or purple. We got to be honest. We got the first Black man on the Supreme Court, and he hate Black people. I don't care about skin color. I care about who can get the job done and make sure that the interests of our people are met. And what happened was they put Brandon Johnson up there and they used him as a black symbol. They didn't use him for any policies because none of his policies were good and he didn't say any. They used him as a black symbol to make the black community vote for him and use Paul Vallis as a racist white man. And that's how they won this election. We cannot continue to allow them to play games in our faces while our young people, our kids, our communities are suffering. And we got to deal with 4-year terms of people who cannot lead a city and lead these communities into a better future. We got to do better next time. We have to do better.
Exactly. So for my viewing audience, where can we follow you on social media? Are there any kind of events that are coming up that you'd like to promote so that way they can follow you? And obviously, I'd like to have you back on so we can continue to discuss about this. Sure. And look, anything that happens in regards to the DNC convention, I'll private message you and tell you what happens in August. But hopefully it doesn't get too crazy there. But where can people follow you? And are there any events that you want to plug?
Yeah, no, I mean, they can go anywhere on Jamal Green on anything, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's not hard to find me. And you know, just stay active on the issues. There's a lot that's going to happen this year, kids. It's going to be a very fun year, very interesting year. And as you know, in Chicago politics, every day is something new. You know, you can literally watch the news in Chicago and see the roller coaster of Chicago because our media market is big. And there's always something to talk about. So it's gonna be a crazy year, and I'm looking forward to it. And what we're going to be doing is, and my team is continuing to help folks in these communities, have ownership, buy homes, so that they aren't pushed out of their communities and they have a lower expenses every month. And you know, really create some generational wealth for themselves, so that they can start to pour into those causes and politicians who can represent them. And that right now is our only way out when we literally have nobody to represent us.
That's a great note to end it on. Everyone give it up for Jamal Green. We're going to be continuing on with the rest of our main show. We got a super show today. Jamal, thank you so much for joining us here at Hard Lens Media. Everyone, stay tuned. We got the rest of the show. We're just going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
SWAT team took your neighbor today. Watch them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. Is it too late for us to ever change? We are collecting the dust of better days. They're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to be safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Sheriff stopped your daughter today. Pepper sprayed her twice in the face. He must have had good reason if he'd treat her that way. At least that's what they've taught you to say. But is it too late for us to ever change. Once we're collecting the dust of better days, and they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to feel safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Feds arrived and had you detained. Said you'd made some posts they weren't changed. Tased you till you felt like you'd forgotten your name, or life before they had you contained. Oh, life before they had you contained. The SWAT team took your neighbor today.